I would focus on quality over quantity and take a more targeted approach. So maybe you don't need as much content. You just need the right content to reach the right people.
Hey there, I'm Krista Vance, entrepreneur and operations leader.
And I'm Matt Vance, tech founder and author of The Review Cycle. This is The Culture Prophet.
We explore how strong workplace culture drives retention, reputation, and real business performance.
We talk with HR leaders, executives, and founders building people-first companies that actually win.
Production of The Culture Prophet is sponsored by Mobram, the original employer reputation platform.
Mobram helps employers take control of how their company shows up in AI search and on review platforms like Glassdoor and Indeed, turning employee feedback into stronger reputation, better hiring, and healthier culture.
Learn more at mobram.com.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode on The Culture Prophet. We're super excited to have Allie Brown here calling in from North Carolina to talk about employer branding. It's definitely something that some people don't understand or confuse of the elements that you can do to really showcase your brand, but she's a true expert in this space, and we're really excited to jump into it. So, Allie, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you, Matt and Krista, for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited, and we're excited to kind of dive into what Matt was saying, and also the tie that happens with, taking care of your people and how that ties into the profits. And so a little bit more about Allie. She leads employer brand and recruitment marketing at VCA Animal Hospitals, a leader in veterinary care and part of the Marsh family of brands. In this role, she developed an award-winning employer brand from the ground up and is bringing it to life through content, storytelling, and experiences. With 15 years of diverse marketing and brand experience across multiple industries, automotive, software, hospitality, and commercial real estate. That is quite all over. That's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of perspective.
She has created... What's that?
Now veterinary, so
yeah, I know, seriously, you just dabbled in everything. That's awesome. She has created sustainable results and award-winning programs for companies by engaging companies' most powerful asset, their people, and we can agree on that completely. She holds a bachelor's degree from Ohio University and is a certified employer brand strategist. Outside of work, she loves traveling, skiing, and spending time with family, including her fur human. What kind of dog do you have?
I have a golden doodle.
Oh, nice.
That's awesome. And I have to ask, where do you ski? Does North Carolina have skiing, or do you travel to do that?
North Carolina has skiing, but not the kind that we like. So we typically travel out west.
Have you been to Utah before?
I have been to Utah, yeah.
Okay. What resort have you gone to here?
Yeah, Park City, Snowbird.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. In high school, I had a season pass to Park City. It's a good resort. We had a crazy winter this year, though. Not much snow, and people just still going, but they're like skiing on mud or something.
Not the best year for skiing in Utah.
Well, that's awesome. So tell us a little bit more about your diverse background and kind of how you went from marketing to employer branding. Love to hear more about that.
So yeah, my career really hasn't been a straight line. I went to school for art because that was something I really enjoyed and loved the creativity and process of it. But then I realized after college that I needed to make money. So
every poor art student, they go through that journey.
Right, exactly. So my creativity then found its way to marketing, and now I've been focused on employer brand for the past 8 years. And when I was recruited into my first employer brand role, I didn't even know what employer brand was, but since then have attended many conferences, networked with people across the field, and have learned a lot. And I think early in my career, I experienced some questionable cultures. So when I did experience what a good culture was, I became really interested in that connection between culture and performance.
Yeah, there is such a close tie, and that's what we've seen as well. And so I'd love to hear more about like your opinion on the tie between the two, and maybe even if you want to share like some things that you saw in those companies that you were like, this is not a good culture and not okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to get into
You don't have to say names for sure.
the typical things that you see, right? Like
Yeah.
having, working long hours or not, valuing people or recognizing people.
Yeah.
But I do think, yeah, that culture that you have really does impact how people feel at work and how they behave. And I also think that, it's really connected to your employer brand as well. So kind of the way that I like to think about it is that culture is the collective personality, right? The values and the attitude, and as we know, how people interact and work gets done, right? So, but then the brand is the collective feeling. So that's what people feel and think about the company and what their connection is to it. And so the culture can impact what people think about a company and can impact the brand. And the brand can change people's attitude toward the company if done in the right way.
Well, I think that was one of the best explanations I've heard of what culture is and what branding is, because for a lot of people, it's this kind of
they look at them totally separate too. They're never.
Yeah, it's like hard to put your finger on what is culture and what is brand. So those social norms and how work gets done, and branding what you feel and think and your connection to it. I love that. I do have kind of a follow-up question. So a lot of the people that listen to the show are primarily coming from an HR background, and you've got this really strong marketing background. And a lot of companies, they're asking an HR professional to put a marketing hat on and think like a marketer when maybe they haven't had that formal education in the space. What do you tell to that HR manager, like just a couple highlight crash course key principles around marketing that really make employer branding what it is?
That's a good question. And I think the biggest piece of advice would be to think about the audience and really know your audience. And that's usually the biggest thing in marketing and branding as well, right? You have to know your consumer. You have to know your product too, but it's even more important that you know your consumer. So really knowing how your employees feel, and then like putting that hat on when you're marketing, branding for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think seeing that direct tie to, marketing to customers, when you're in employer branding, your customer is the employee. And
the job seeker.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that's really good. Know the consumer, know the product, and the culture is the product, right? The experience that you're selling as like a work product, the experience that potential employee could have. I think that's amazing.
So with what you're working on right now, we know you're at VCA Animal Hospitals. What do you feel are some of the top branding efforts that a company can work towards, or maybe what have you specifically been working towards?
Yeah, so a lot of companies are talking about storytelling right now, not in employer brand, but everywhere. And I think storytelling's been a part of the conversation for quite some time now. And it was, for a while all about the authenticity, and it still is, but now it's more about the type of storytelling and type of like, TikTok style content. But I think, where it's gone is that having a careers blog or a careers social media isn't enough anymore. That there's three things. First, it needs to be tied to your strategy. And so by that, I mean your business strategy and your HR people strategy. So to do this, you want to use whatever data that you have, whether it's engagement surveys, brand surveys, to guide really what your storytelling framework is. So think about like, okay, where do we need to go? Then what stories will help us get there? What do we want to reinforce with our employees? And think about it like as what themes you can put into place and what different formats or repeatable content formats that you want to carry through that storytelling. And also part of the strategy is about like how you're finding the stories. So maybe if you have a recognition program or an engagement survey, those are things that you can look at. Of course, your employee resource groups as well and other organizations like that are always great to tap into.
Yeah, definitely. No, I completely agree. And like when we've talked previously, we talked a little bit about just the specific example of PTO. And you can offer a lot of PTO, but if you don't have the culture and that support surrounding that, then you don't have people feeling like they can use it.
Exactly. And so the second thing that is really important to this storytelling strategy is that, don't just tell a story about like PTO in general, like tell a story about like a specific person, like, oh, when Allie went on that ski trip, which I actually just went on a recent ski trip and went hella skiing for the first time.
Whoa.
Awesome. So
How was
like
that is so cool. Where did you do that?
In Telluride, Colorado.
Wow,
Okay.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So those little details though, like everyone that listens or watches this podcast will remember that, right? And so those details are what makes things make the stories memorable. So
yeah, I have a friend that, if she were just to hear PTO, she'd be like, snooze fest, right? So it really does. It makes it more memorable, more like somebody's going to be able to put their self in their shoes and imagine themselves working for VCA Animal Hospitals or wherever it is. They're going to be able to kind of apply it more to themselves because it's personal.
More of an emotional connection,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Quick thanks to our sponsor, Mobram.
Do you ask employees for Glassdoor reviews? Well, you should. That's how you authentically strengthen your ratings.
But keeping track of which employees you've asked and when you need to ask for a review again is very time consuming, and you need to ensure you're FTC compliant with these requests.
Mobram automates your employee review requests via text or email across all the top employee review sites. This means more high-quality reviews to strengthen your ratings, better visibility in AI search, and even eligibility for Best Place to Work awards.
Watch a 5-minute demo on mobram.com. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and my third thing would be that you need to amplify the stories now, that it no longer really works if you're solely relying on organic. So it takes budget, right, to have media, right, to amplify to the right audience. But I would use focus on quality over quantity and take a more targeted approach. So maybe you don't need as much content. You just need the right content to reach the right people. And so instead of spending as much producing, a post for every day of the week, maybe focus your efforts on fewer posts, but really making sure that they get in front of the right people, because we all know with the social algorithms and all the noise out there today, it's really hard to reach people.
Yeah, so you mentioned using some budget. So are we talking like Google ads, LinkedIn? Like what have been kind of your go-to, or do you try to diversify how you spend that budget?
Yeah, I think Meta, so both Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn are still the tried and true platforms.
For sure.
TikTok's great as well if you have a TikTok presence. If not, you can do it. You can amplify your employees' content through Spark codes or things like that.
Oh yeah.
Some like content creators, but and then Google helps to have those ads running for conversion. So after people see the ads, then when they go to search for jobs, are yours popping up?
Yeah, I like that. And just to follow up, because I'd love to get your perspective on like employee advocacy, as far as, I love those three, aligning your storytelling with strategy, two, making it personal, and three, amplifying. But I've also heard that when a brand posts, it has less reach than when a person posts. And I know like on LinkedIn specifically, you can promote posts of employees, and you mentioned that with Spark on TikTok. Have you seen that that's more effective than posts from the brand accounts, the company accounts?
Yeah, definitely. We actually started doing, I would say, employee advocacy kind of a non-traditional way. So we wanted to reach more vet students, and so we worked with vet student creators and had them share about VCA through their lens and their experience. So they weren't necessarily employees of VCA, but many of them had experiences at VCA, whether they took their pet to a VCA before, or some of them do what we call an externship. It's kind of like a 2-week program where you can come work at our hospital, or maybe they worked as a technician or assistant before they went to vet school. So they had some sort of previous experience with the company. But having them share their stories, definitely we saw higher engagement across all of those posts. And I think there's the Edelman stat that was published a while ago back that's that people trust the employees' content 3 times more than the companies.
Yeah,
so
totally.
That holds true.
Now that's way more than the company post. So definitely something to focus on and not ignore, not overlook. The voice of your people is very powerful.
And that's a very outside of the box approach. I have not heard someone using that strategy, and
really
that's
cool.
Really, really smart. I had a question. So you're working at VCA Animal Hospitals, which is a very big organization. So would you change anything, change your advice at all, or have a recommendation for someone who's working at wanting to do these things, wanting to accomplish these things, but they're working with a much smaller budget and maybe working, at a much smaller company? What would you change kind of your strategy to adapt to that? How would you change that?
I don't think I would, because outside of the amplifying posts, nothing, that I shared is something that's really a lot of budget. And, you can, with social media ads, you can, work with a small budget and still get some good results depending on the size of the audience that you're trying to reach. So smaller company, you're trying to reach a smaller audience, you don't need as much budget. So I think the same strategy applies no matter the industry, no matter the company size, that it still works.
I think you can confidently say that because you've worked in veterinary, you've worked in commercial real estate. You're like, yeah, this is the strategy, guys. Yeah, I love that. And that shows that the strategy work, that you have the confidence to say that. And I agree. So just maybe your budget is less, so you're just using less budget and you're reaching a smaller audience.
Yeah, I think that's you found a really good recipe for success. I like that. So any other advice that you would share from your experience around employer branding as we're kind of wrapping up here? Any words of wisdom?
Well, I know, I'm looking at your book behind you, the review cycle. And so I think it's important, right, that for the culture and brand to connect, to really take that employee input and feedback and show it and bring it to life too. So, at VCA, we have surveys where I'm responding to our Glassdoor reviews, and there's programs out there too to like share ideas. But what I think is really important is that when you're communicating these new initiatives or changes in your organization, that you share that it was an employee idea, so that people know and they see that action, like, oh, they really are listening, and that they are encouraged to then continue giving feedback. So that I think is really important. And then like the brand, we always like say, like, you don't want to get sold the sports car, right? And then show up to the company and it's not the sports car you expected.
Right.
You want to make sure that the culture that you're marketing on the outside matches what's on the inside. And one of the ways that as an employer brand manager that you can help do that is by making sure the feedback is shared with the right people. So having a protocol in place to escalate and share your Glassdoor reviews, and sharing that survey data with HR, with business leaders. So I think that's really important to make sure that the brand comes full circle and it isn't just about like what you're putting out there, but you make the connection to what it actually is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, full circle. Transparency. What you're putting out is what you are, and what's coming, what you're going to get from those you recruit, right?
And I think you're really smart to pay attention to both those internal feedback loops with surveys and suggestions and other things on the inside, but also the external feedback loop that's shaping perceptions and behaviors with Glassdoor reviews and other employee reviews, and taking both of those data sets, replying or reporting back to your team to close that feedback loop, and then escalating to leadership. That's very powerful. And I think you're spot on. I mean, that's where a lot of the strategy gets formed at the very beginning, is to understand what people are thinking and feeling, and the internal and external pieces. It's kind of like bringing it back to the beginning of the conversation when you talked about branding versus culture. I mean, they're related but distinct, and I think those external and internal feedback loops can really help formulate strategy on both sides. I think that's awesome. Allie, we've learned so much, and I know others listening have too. We're so grateful to have this conversation today, and really appreciate everything you've shared. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, of course. Thanks for having me, and thanks for listening, and feel free to connect on LinkedIn.
Yeah, we'll include a link to her LinkedIn, and also on our highlight article, and to any other resources that she has to share with you guys. So tune in next time, leave us a review, and thank you so much, Allie. Such a great conversation today.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good day. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to The Culture Prophet.
If this episode gave you a useful idea, share it with a leader building a better workplace.
Production of The Culture Prophet is sponsored by Mobrium. helping employers to employ feedback into stronger culture and reputation.
Learn more at mobrim.com.
Until next time,
go find one way to prioritize your people and watch your profits grow.